So you're interested in getting into the professional world of fashion, but you're confused. What is the right role for you? Should you become a fashion designer? Should you become a buyer? Should you become a project manager? Should you become a pattern draper? Or do you not know any of these roles even existed? Do you just think that all fashion designers are fashion designers? Well, on today's episode, I'll give you guys my experience leading a fashion design agency that's worked with thousands of brands over the last 7 years in terms of what are the different types of roles, whether they're conceptual and design focused or they're technical and very organizational focused. First is going to be your traditional fashion designer. This is the powerhouse of any fashion house. And a fashion designer has to come up with a collection, they have to come up with a mood board, they have to select the fabrics, they have to create the designs, and they may even help with the tech packs. A fashion designer's core initiative is to create the designs for the collections. Next, we have the textile designers. Very similar to a fashion designer in that they can and will be working on actual designs of garments, but they may be employed at a textile house that contracts out their fabrics to other brands and creates exclusive fabrics specifically for brands. So they may tinker with the composition, with the construction methodology, whether it's woven or knitted. They might look at the threads, what types of finishes are done on the threads. Next, we have an accessories designer. So these are going to be designers that are much more focused on the actual physical or hard surface items that complement your collection. An accessories designer may come in and depending on the brand, if it's a sportswear brand, they'll come in and they'll create hats, backpacks, sunglasses, any other type of accessory that complements a collection. Next, we have our costume designer. This is going to require you to have a strong understanding of history and how historically certain garments and certain fashion trends have come and gone. Here, you also have to have an understanding of color, of fabric, of texture, all in the name of creating and calling back to a time, a place, a mood, an aesthetic. You also have to be conscious of how the screenplay or how the actual movie that you're designing the piece for has other pieces that come into play. Next, you have a pattern maker or a draper or a sample hand, and this is a crucial role in any fashion design process. Honestly, the pattern maker's component in the design process can make or break a product. They will do a little bit of everything and they may be even involved in the design process, because there is a little bit of back and forth that has to go between the fashion designer and the pattern maker. If the pattern maker finds that a fashion designer doesn't work quite well, they'll come in, they'll provide their technical expertise to turn that design from something that's impractical into a practical. They'll also need to be able to ensure what are the best practices for the construction, the production, and the overall technical fit of the garment. Next, we have our production manager. This is a key role that requires a ton of organizational ability. And here you're tracking all samples, all open production orders. You're making sure that all of the different components of your production are lining up in time so that there's no one factory that's waiting on another factory to deliver the trims or the zippers or the prints or the fabrics in time. It's making sure that retailers are delivering or receiving their products on time and are paying for them on time. You'll also have a CAD designer whose key role is in creating the actual technical specifications of a garment. And this is a role that goes hand in hand with the pattern maker. Typically, a CAD designer will create flats. They'll create technical flats that have key measurements of your product that allow a pattern maker to understand what the designer is looking for and effectively translate that visual design into a 2D pattern that can be cut. Lastly, in the conceptual realm, we have the stylist, and here this is a supporting role for the fashion designer. Allows them to push their aesthetic, their theme further by selecting the right types of fabrics, the right types of colors, the right types of prints, silhouettes. So perhaps the fashion designer has created the collection in one way. They're able to see how minor adjustments can be made to create more depth to the products, or more versatility, or to further push the motifs and the themes in the collection. Next, we have the roles that focus primarily on knowledge and trends, and the first one is going to be that of the buyer. A buyer needs to have a deep understanding of the specific retail store customers' needs and wants. Also, they should be looking at the micro and macroeconomic situation to be able to project out in advance 6 months to 12 months of what customers are going to want and what they may need. You also have the retail manager. The retail manager has to blend or mix the best of both worlds. They have to have an understanding of what the customer wants, how to communicate effectively with the customer, that fine line between understanding the technical components of the product, the fit, the fabric. You also have your designer showroom representatives, and these are reps that are specifically and exclusively hired by the brand itself to sell their collections to the buyers of the retailers that they work with. This requires an understanding of the house that you're working with, the aesthetic, the philosophy, the vision, as well as the core product undertakings and offerings. Also, they'll be able to communicate the feedback from the buyers and what the market is feeling regarding the products. That way, the design house, the fashion designers can effectively make smarter choices. You also have a fashion public relations specialist, and their core goal is to make sure that the public perceives the brand in the way that the brand intends the public to perceive it. And they'll always make sure to maintain positive relationships with the retailers, with the buyers that they're working with, and to have their customers have a positive view of them. We also have your fashion journalist, and the key roles of a fashion journalist are the ability to understand fashion history, to understand current societal trends and what society needs, to be able to have a critical eye to critique and to provide feedback. Next is the costume historian, and we have these people to thank for all of the amazing fashion pieces that we see in the Louvre, we see in some of Europe's and North America's biggest and boldest museums. Our ability to go into a museum and to see what people wore hundreds and hundreds of years ago, and it almost looks as if it's new, gives us as designers the ability to understand where fashion has been in order for us to see where it's gone. And last but not least, we have the trend forecaster, and this person's key role is to be able to forecast ahead of time, to give fashion houses the ability to design ahead of time. That way, they're not creating a collection and then at the end of that process, they're finding, oh, this collection is out of date. Well guys, that is it. That's a wrap on this episode. These are the many different roles that you can take on in the fashion business. Let me know which of these roles personally resonates with you the most. Consider subscribing to one of our membership tiers. We have 3. We offer exclusive content every single week. We have 2 episodes that drop. We offer freebies from our website, digital downloads that are the perfect assets for any aspiring fashion designer. We have color books, we have fashion flats, we have fabric resources. There's a ton of great stuff in there. You get discounts across our website. You get design packs every single month delivered to you in a Dropbox link, and much more. So if you're interested, check the memberships section of our community tab, and I guarantee you, you won't be let down. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of FittDesign TV. Until next week's episode, stay awesome.